You're in to talk tennis. Colm Boohig, by the way, for anybody listening, is with us in studio. The poor tennis and the poor GAA getting taken over by the story of the weekend, the cricket.
I mean, it was one of the last things on the RT News, the sports section last night, and then it was they had an actual bulletin on it as well with the cricket. But like, I was just so taken by the tennis, and then flicking over to the football, flipping over to the hurling. It was just non-stop yesterday. It was one of the most remarkable days of sport in a long time.
Yeah, it certainly was. Let's start with Federer Djokovic then. Yesterday, the longest final in the history of the tournament. Federer's 2 match points. I mean, that would have been the moment where he gets to 21 slams. It's a 2-slam swing, essentially, what happens after not taking those match points.
It's 4 hours, 57 minutes, longest Wimbledon final ever. But for Federer, that's 3 times he's been beaten by Djokovic in the Wimbledon final. 5 titles now for Djokovic. But Federer, I mean, I don't know where he goes from here. He's 38 next month. He had 2 championship points. He's the first player since 1948 to lose the Wimbledon final having had match points. They were on his serve. He had hit 2 aces to get to 40-15 to win the match. It was all set up. He was the better player all game long. As Phil Egan touched on earlier this morning, his stats were so far superior to Djokovic. I mean, I'd have him in front of me. Federer had 25 aces to Djokovic's 10. Federer hit 94 winners to Djokovic's 54. He won more points, he won more games, and yet Novak Djokovic is the 2019 Wimbledon champion.
Why is that?
Absolutely incredible.
Like, is it a freak? Is it something that Djokovic didn't deserve, or are we kind of like painting the stats to kind of say that Roger Federer falsely deserved what happened yesterday?
You know what I was thinking of when it was happening, it was like a quintessential Jose Mourinho-like performance in football. And if you want to get really specific, it reminded me of when Mourinho's Inter went to Barcelona, went to the Nou Camp in 2010, the Champions League semi-final second leg, and they ground out this like backs against the wall ultimate performance to win the match. And it kind of felt like that for Djokovic, because Federer was the proactive player. He was so assertive. He was making all the shots. The crowd were so partisan towards him. It was unbelievable. And yet Djokovic just stayed in there. I mean, the 3 of the 5 sets that he won were tie breaks. They were shootouts. And the 2 sets that Federer won was 6-1, 6-4. In the second set, Federer broke Djokovic twice early on. Won 100% of his first serve points that went in. I mean, statistically, Federer was just playing so much better, played all the beautiful tennis, but Djokovic just hung in there. And at 40-30 down and the second championship point, Djokovic had this amazing passing shot when Federer was approaching the net. I mean, that takes so much bravery, and you know, the fans might not take the Djokovic as much as he wants them to, but no one can deny he's unbelievable. He's now 16 Grand Slams. That's 4 behind Federer, 2 behind Nadal. He's the youngest of the 3 at 32. You do back him to go on and do it.
I think so. Like, you look at the adaptations he's made as well in terms of his coaching team over the last couple of years. Ivanisevic is in with him.
Yeah, Ivanisevic, 2001 Wimbledon winner, yeah.
This is the sort of fella who clearly has his eyes set on the greater goal here, which is becoming the greatest tennis player of all time. And to do that, you need to constantly adapt and find new things. And Djokovic is clearly doing that. Yesterday may have been had its fair share of luck, because let's face it, if you're up against 2 championship points, you have to have a bit of luck to escape that to a certain point. But clearly he's doing everything in his power to make sure that he is on top of his game all the time. Yeah,
well, there's luck, but I mean, nobody else could do this, I don't think. And I mean, Djokovic was in a really bad way. He lost the French Open semi-final to Dominic Thiem, and that really set him back. He like, that really hurt him. So he came into this match so driven. Really, Roberto Bautista Agut caused him a bit of problems in the semi-final before he went off in a stag. But other than that, Djokovic pretty much breezed through this. But yesterday, he said himself it was an incredibly tough game. But Federer, after the match, we should have a listen to this. Federer was asked in the post-match press conference, would he have rather have lost in straight sets and being an easy defeat? And here's what he said.
It's hard to tell. I don't know if losing 2-2 feels better than this one. At the end, it actually doesn't matter, you know, to some extent, you know. You might feel more disappointed, sad, over angry. I don't know what I feel right now. You know, I just feel like it's such an incredible opportunity missed. I can't believe it, you know, but it is what it is, you know.
It's the incredible opportunity missed, and he seems so hurt. I mean, he said all the right things, and that was the thing that stood out the most. But you feel for Federer, like, as I say, 38 next month. I don't know how long more he has left in him to really add another Grand Slam, to add another Wimbledon title. The last time he won it was 2017, but Federer has only won Wimbledon twice this decade, 2012 and 2017, after his dominance of the 2000s. Djokovic has now won it back-to-back, like he did in 2014 and 15, when he beat Federer twice. For Djokovic himself, in the post-match press conference, which we'll listen to here, he was asked about where does that match rank in his total career, and here's what he said.
Well, it was a huge relief in the end, honestly. This kind of matches, you work for, you live for. They give sense and they give value to every minute you spend on the court, training and working to get yourself in this position and play the match with one of your greatest rivals of all time. That was one thing that I promised myself coming onto the court today, that I need to stay calm and composed, because I knew that the atmosphere will be as it was, and obviously Roger is playing well, and I kind of predicted the scenarios in my head already, visualized what's going to happen, but it was probably the most demanding, mentally most demanding match I was ever part of. I had most physically demanding match against Nadal in finals of Australia. They went almost 6 hours, but mentally this was a different level.
Two emotionally drained voices there, as you can clearly hear. I just want to kind of go back on Federer again, because I don't recall Federer ever sounding that disappointed in the aftermath of a defeat. No. But all the great Nadal defeats, there was kind of a sense of that was amazing.
Yeah.
Is it because of the manner, or is it because of the fact that you mentioned he's 38 soon, that this kind of felt like a last chance, or one of the last chances to get to 21?
Well, I can't believe he didn't win, so I can only imagine what he thinks. I mean, I was just like, looking back at the match there, he had a really great chance to win the set in the third set too, which would have put him 2-1 up, and he missed that opportunity. He missed a break point opportunity. I think he knows it's not like 2008 when he lost to Nadal. I mean, that match is considered one of the greatest, by many the greatest tennis match of all time, and he very much played his part in that. It was a 50-50 share, which Nadal just edged, but they both came out as winners, let's say. But for this, you can't escape the fact that Federer threw this away, like this was his. And how often do you say that about Roger Federer?
Yeah.
I mean, what you associate with Federer is such calmness and laser focus and tunnel vision like nobody else, and yet Djokovic outlasted him. I mean, I just can't believe he didn't win it at those 2 championship points. Having said that, I mean, I thought the match was always veering towards Djokovic, even though statistically Federer's far superior. I thought that Djokovic just had so much self-belief. He actually said in the press conference as well that when he heard the crowd chanting Federer, what he was pretending was they were chanting for Djokovic. That he's that mental strength that keeps him going. It's unbelievable. And I mean, we were talking last week about Nick Kyrgios saying this guy is obsessed with wanting to be liked. You saw him in the press conference yesterday, and he was like, even if I'm not light, I pretend I'm light because it helps me to win. And ultimately it helped him win yesterday. I just thought, like, it was incredible statistically how Federer didn't win this match. Like, Djokovic's first break point in the whole entire match came 2 hours and 45 minutes into it. That's how imperious Federer was. And yet Djokovic just won the match.
Yeah, it's insane.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
The idea now of Djokovic chasing down Federer's title, like, I don't want to overplay the impact of yesterday, but yesterday feels seismic in terms of Federer's title as the leading Grand Slam winner, and that 20 just feels a little bit more precarious because A, it's a 2 slam swing, as I've already mentioned, but B, the fact that disappointment from Federer suggests that this is a guy who doesn't have long left. His power of actually stopping Djokovic and adding to his own haul is very finite at this point. Yeah. So he's now counting on Andy Murray coming back to full fitness, may not ever happen. Rafael Nadal coming back to being a better player outside of the French Open than Novak Djokovic on a regular basis. I think we can agree that's not going to happen at any point. So Djokovic could ultimately cruise on in here with a weak men's division outside of the big four at this point. And he's looking at that 20 as a real target in his career now. Yeah,
I mean, there's talent coming through in Zverev, Tsitsipas, Auger Aliassime, but they're just nowhere near that level yet. I'm just thinking that's way ahead in the future. In the meantime, Murray might come back, he might make the US Open, but he's going to make, tops 3rd round, 4th round at best. He's a long way away from ever returning to his full fitness, to his best, to his 3 Grand Slam winning form, and he's also a year older than Djokovic. For Nadal, 12 of his 18 Grand Slams have come in the French Open. Like you said, he's just completely clay obsessed, and that's where he's by far the best. Nadal hasn't won Wimbledon since 2010. It's a long way away. Although I did think he was going to win on Friday against Federer, which seems like a lifetime ago. But Federer was stupendous in that game.
Should we be appreciating those moments in terms of this is one of the last times ultimately it was 11 years since we saw them on Wimbledon. There's a good chance that we're not going to see too many of them.
The Federer Nadal one, like who knows what's going to happen next year? But you think Federer, he picks and chooses his tournaments now. He doesn't play anywhere near as much, and yet, like, it is in many ways it's a damning indictment of where the men's game is. That at 37 years of age, Federer, who pretty much plays part-time these days, kind of breezed his way through to the final, and then ultimately met his only match in the player that's ranked ahead of him, seeded ahead of him. Wimbledon, it was 1 and 2 in the seeds of Wimbledon. It was 1 against 3 in the world, and Djokovic just his stamina. Let's come back to it. It's his stamina kept him in this match, and he ultimately prevailed. It was one of those things, if you played it 9 times out of 10 a game, again, you'd have to say Federer comes out on top, and he must be waking up this morning. I mean, again, if I'm waking up thinking, how did he lose it? I can only imagine what Federer thinks, and it really tested my instinct when the match ended, when Federer skied a shot into the air and Djokovic won. I was thinking, I don't know if he's ever going to recover from this, and I mean, he's definitely going to think about it, because he still thinks about the 2009 US Open that he lost to Del Potro as one of his biggest regrets. He said that just before Wimbledon this year. That was 10 years ago. So I can only imagine how long this will stick with him. And it could be one of his last big moments in tennis. I mean, it's fascinating. It will probably make a great documentary upon when we look back on it and what he actually thinks, what his honest thoughts were at this time, because he must be feeling incredibly low.
There's a great stat yesterday that Goran Ivanisevic is actually the 6th most recent Wimbledon winner.
Oh, it's up. Leighton Hewitt in 2002 was the last real outsider to win it in comparative terms.
Let's talk about Saturday. Simona Halep destroying Serena Williams 6-2, 6-2. What's the bigger story here? Is it Halep or is it Serena?
I think Halep, 6-2, 6-2, 56 minutes the match took. They played each other 10 times previously before that. Serena won 9 of them. It was no contest going into it. You would have thought Serena was going to add another Grand Slam title to make it 24 in her overall haul, which would have matched Margaret Court. Another Wimbledon title for Serena, her first Grand Slam in 2.5 years since the 2017 Australian Open, but she was destroyed by Halep. Halep made 3 unforced errors in the entire match. She was flawless. She gave up. She conceded 1 break point, which she saved. Serena had 26 unforced errors, only hit 2 aces. She was completely out of sorts. But to her credit, in the immediate post-match interview with Sue Barker on BBC on court, Serena said she was like a deer in headlights out there, that she could not believe how good Halep was. And I think Halep was the same. When she was interviewed, she said it was by far her best performance ever. Halep, a former world number 1, 2018 French Open champion. She has acumen. It wasn't a complete surprise. She was ranked 7 in this tournament. She's only dropped a set going into the final, and it was probably her easiest match. I think even her coach suggested that it was her easiest match, the final. 56 minutes. I mean, certainly when you compare it to what happened the next day, 4 hours 57 minutes for Federer Djokovic, for this to be 56 minutes, it was equally as impressive as how Djokovic stayed in and won it, in terms of how Halep demolished Serena. I mean, you could feel the surprise, and I would say almost shock in the crowd when you're watching through the TV. You could feel on centre court that they couldn't believe that this was happening. But Halep just ran down everything that Serena attempted. She was going for her power forehands, and Halep was just going from side to side in the court. She was hitting deep, long returns which Serena had no answer to, and then she was finishing those chances that she got when Serena would hit a weak shot back. It was so impressive how she took her apart.
Serena obviously loves New York, so we could have a situation here where she matches Margaret Court this very summer, but there is a sense now it's a massive if she can ever get back to that level.
I don't know, it's the Federer debate. They're both the same age, Serena and Federer, at 37, but Serena, she just hasn't played enough this year. She only played 2 top 10 players this year going into Wimbledon. She only played at 1 top 20 opponent en route to the final. That was in the 3rd round against Georges, which she won pretty comfortably. So she got a fairly comfortable, favourable draw en route to the final. So she wasn't really tested up until she came up against Halep, and Halep just blew her away. It was incredible, the performance. But Halep actually said afterwards that 2019 is the first time that she really felt comfortable on grass. Would you believe?
Right, okay.
And up to this point, she felt she couldn't really play there. That wasn't suited to her game. But I thought it always was suited, because she's fast around the court. She's incredibly good at the low strokes, getting the back of him, powerful forehands and backhands. And for that reason, she was so much the better player on Saturday. It was unbelievable actually to watch it. You would think that Serena was the rank outsider if you knew absolutely nothing about what was happening, and yet I wouldn't even say it was an underperformance or that she choked because she's so obsessed with getting the Margaret Court record. Halep just didn't give her a chance to even settle. But for Serena, that's 3 Grand Slam final defeats in 12 months since she came back after the pregnancy. She, of course, had the US Open final defeat last year against Naomi Osaka, which is more infamous for the umpire fight on court. And then she lost last year's Wimbledon as well against Kerber. And all those 3 Grand Slam defeats have been in straight sets. So she's been comprehensively beaten in the 3 finals that she's played. And she said herself she needs to play more tennis in the post-match press conference. She needs to play more finals outside of Grand Slams to get back to being used to dominating the game again. I don't know if that will happen. I really don't.
No, I don't think it will. I think dominance is probably beyond her at this point, but still Margaret Court's record well within her sights, you'd imagine. Colm, thanks a million for that. A brilliant Wimbledon tournament.